I was reborn 710 years ago, the day the apocalyptic tide began. Amidst the desolate ruins, came the mournful cries of the bereaved, and I seemed to be used to all this. I was about to pick up my sword, but after searching for a long time, I only found an unsharpened blade. It looked somewhat familiar. The sound of intense gunfire came from outside the window. I instinctively opened the car door. I turned and hid behind cover. From the sound, it seemed like an old submachine gun. It immediately attracted the nearby zombies. They ran toward the source of the sound. "What's the situation over there?" A girl named Xia Ran looked serious. "The crowd is evacuating. We need you to hold on a little longer, but the ammunition is already running low." Where did these half-human, half-monster things come from? I'm suddenly curious. Why are they wearing old military uniforms? And their weapons are severely outdated. This combat strategy is completely wrong. It's only a matter of time before the entire army is wiped out. Should I save them or not? What if there are high-level infected? Even without weapons, I'd be at a disadvantage. They've run out of bullets. Fortunately, the civilians have all evacuated. Since there are no more concerns on that front, everyone decided to fight to the death. They engaged in close combat with the zombies. They left the chance to survive for Xia Ran. All of her teammates are dead, and Xia Ran only has one bullet left. An inexplicable fear suddenly surged in her heart. Facing the approaching zombies, she aimed the gun at her own head. A crashing sound came from not far away. A long sword kept striking the hood of the car. It immediately attracted the attention of the zombies. "Why haven't we evacuated yet?" The zombies ran toward the source of the sound. Before Xia Ran could remind them, a flash of sword light passed by. It severed all the zombies ahead. At the moment of landing, the zombies behind were already torn to pieces. Xia Ran stared at the scene in shock. Countless blades and swords darted through the crowd of zombies. Even special forces can only handle 3 at most. Yet he was able to handle 50 at once. His gaze met Xia Ran's. It seems only she survived. The glint of a short sword flashed on the ground. I picked it up without a second thought. Then, I hurled it forward. As it struck the zombie's chest, I took a quick step and stomped on the hilt. Leaping into the air, I caught the short sword. The flurry of sword strikes shredded all the zombies. After everything settled into stillness. It's like being newly infected. Looking at Xia Ran, frozen in place, I stepped forward and introduced myself. "I am Wang Zhe from the World Evolution Collaborators Organization. Please provide intelligence and necessary assistance." "Why should I assist you? I am the military, okay?" Looking at Xia Ran's military ID. Didn't China abolish 7 early on? And look at his old-fashioned security uniform, and the surrounding weak infected people. I asked aloud, "What year is it now?" November 3, 2021. Hearing this, I was greatly shocked. I had actually returned 710 years ago. That was the day the apocalypse began. An alien object called the Destroyer suddenly crashed into Earth. Over 50% of the world's population was infected and turned into monsters. Luckily, alien technology landed on Earth. It generated crystals that allow humans to evolve. And I am one of the evolved. Unfortunately, I only have physical enhancements. I don't possess world-destroying abilities like other evolvers. At that moment, I suddenly realized, I haven't been deprived of power. Instead, I was brought back from the brink of death, back to 710 years ago. Isn't this my ability? And I've been reborn with my future body. I have to stop all of this. 7 auroras appeared in the sky. In the future, we call it the evolution zone. This should be one of the first evolution zones globally. I didn't expect to see such a beautiful scene. In this desolate post-apocalyptic world. I'm a sophomore at the National Defense Military Academy. I hear you're a sophomore too. How could someone like me possibly reach out and ask for my student ID? After all, how would an ordinary college student carry a weapon? I must be a high-ranking military officer, sent on a secret mission with a fabricated identity. But she quickly slapped herself in the face. When she looked at the information on my student ID, she had nothing more to say. The top priority is to leave here first. Seeing that I was about to leave, Xia ran behind and continue alone. She immediately put on an act. As a member of the military, I have an obligation to protect you, a civilian. But before she could finish speaking, I had already closed the doors and windows. After thinking for a moment, we were on our way to the evolution zone. I didn't expect this military vehicle, which had been phased out for years. Xia Ran thought she could finally show off, but after seeing the look in my eyes, her face suddenly turned red. "Why are you staring at me?" I told her, "Stop the car." She then got out. Ling leaned out of the car window and said to her. It turns out Xia Ran was being overly sentimental. She had been staring at her just to learn how to drive. At this speed now, I'm afraid we won't make it. Before Xia Ran could react, I slammed the accelerator and started the car. To be honest, even a driver with 30 years of experience wouldn't drive like this. Did I really just learn this? As the car drove over one zombie after another, I urged Xia Ran to stay focused. The evolution zone has been hit hard. The further we go in, the more dangerous the roads will be. But why do we need to go to the evolution zone? Is there family there? Facing Xia Ran's question, I knew I'd asked the wrong question. Xia Ran quickly changed the subject. Actually, their mission was to investigate there too. But unexpectedly, they encountered infected people along the way. Then, green aurora appeared in the sky. That was the sign that the evolution zone had opened. I missed it in my last life. This time, I must get the crystal. I asked Xiang Xiaoran. But there wasn't much time left. Hearing this, I immediately sensed something was wrong. At 1700 hours, the entire plan was about to begin. No one would be able to enter the 10-kilometer radius after that. It seemed I had to change lanes. Xiang Xiaoran was still curious. I had already slammed the steering wheel. A dragon-like tail swung up onto the overpass. Looking at the scene ahead, there was a dense crowd of zombies. Even if I rammed through all of them, it would be too late. But Xia Ran never expected that I would actually use the turret machine gun. Under the barrage of gunfire, the zombies were shattered one by one. She managed to blow up every single one without leaving any behind. I told Xia Ran to floor the gas pedal. Even if there's a turn ahead, don't touch the steering wheel. This made Xia Ran immediately serious. She crushed every zombie in front of us without hesitation. Without any second thoughts, she charged ahead. Xia Ran, terrified, shut her eyes. The countdown started ringing. The time is exactly 7:17. A loud explosion came from above the sky. A large number of green light dots scattered everywhere. The car remained motionless, suspended in midair. In a moment, it began to crash toward the ground. I could feel the golden quicksand beneath my feet. Why did the city turn into a desert? I can't believe I saw the pyramids and the Sphinx. Then, a voice entered everyone's minds. Evolution zone generated. Loading location. Egypt. Crystal Guardian generated. Absorb the evolution crystal. Listening to these familiar rules. This is a trial ground where humans can evolve. There are only 3 ways to leave. First, defeat the Guardian. A certain number of humans enter within 5 meters of the crystal. The survivors reach the number specified by the crystal. As long as we meet any one of these conditions, we can be freed. Otherwise, no one can leave. As the first generation of evolvers, I'm sure I'll be the center of attention in the apocalypse. But those clueless bystanders don't think so. A zombie casually walked past. A zombie smashed the bus driver's window. Unexpectedly, the speeding bus couldn't brake. It directly crashed into the barrier. Nobody can get out of here. Soon, a cry for help came from the car. I immediately understood. But as we passed the Sphinx, it seemed to be watching everything. A roar broke the silence. The female mourner slowly entered the carriage. And 3 girls named Yuqing were pushed out. Hurry up, you guys. If you hadn't gotten us on the bus, this wouldn't have happened. The female corpse was already lunging. The girls were in chaos. Luckily, Yuqing used the iron bar to hold its mouth shut. That's how we escaped through the door. Just as both sides were at a stalemate, another corpse had arrived at the door. Hold on. She ran out of the car without looking back. She was getting farther and farther away. The female zombie broke free from its restraints, facing the encirclement of 2 zombies. A figure shattered the car window. At the moment the zombies were about to bite Yuqing, a sword pierced its brain. Then I slowly drew the sword. My heart jumped into my throat. The widow suddenly appeared. It looked like she was about to bite me. I quickly sidestepped to avoid her. Then I gripped the long sword. A flash of white sword light streaked by. All that remained was her head, mumbling on the ground. Yuqing was impressed by my skills. The moment she made eye contact with me, her little face couldn't help but turn red. I feel like I've seen her somewhere before. I'm Yuqing. Just as I was about to introduce myself, Xia Ran, who had arrived, interrupted me. This place is dangerous. It's dangerous here, but the girl said there's someone else who's not here. Hearing this, I immediately sensed something was wrong. At this moment, the guy with yellow hair kept running forward. Suddenly, a dark shadow appeared in the sky. It turned out to be an enormous foot. Everyone was terrified. The Sphinx actually moved. It lifted the bus. The sound was so loud it hurt my eardrums. I was about to be flattened. I said calmly, taking out a book and opening it. But now there's no time to explain. A sharp claw pierced the car roof, then tore a large crack. The guardian abruptly looked inside the car. These people were calmly reading. At this moment, to the bystanders, it seemed like this car was definitely doomed. Little did they know, I was actually reminiscing about high school history. Watching the monster slowly leave, I wondered, why didn't they just kill them? At that moment, I closed my textbook, and told everyone it was safe. They all sighed in relief. So what exactly is going on here? Why isn't the monster attacking us? In response to Xia Ran's question, the explanation is quite lengthy. The god refers to the guardian sphinx. It would present a riddle to those who encountered it. Only when a wise person answered correctly, would the sphinx feel ashamed and fall off the cliff. The nature of gods is to respect and fear those with knowledge. When I thought about this, I suddenly realized, they might also survive. She is one of the few original evolved beings in the world. She holds the title of Storm Queen, with the terrifying ability to create catastrophic weather. She became an important leader of future China. I now have the same opportunity as her. Now that we have a way to deal with the Sphinx, we're bound to win. The real killing happens at the end. We can't stay here any longer. We're being watched. The smell of blood in the car will attract more zombies, and since the search started, quite a few people have had their eyes on us. It seems they have some intentions toward us. After all, leaving here doesn't necessarily require killing the Guardians. Killing a certain number of people can also complete the mission. So, the people here are not simple. You need to be prepared to kill. Humans are far more dangerous than zombies. We left the car and proceeded stealthily. The sandstorm at night can interfere with the zombies' hearing, and the small supermarket at the end of the street is our destination. It has enough supplies to last us for a while. Xia Ran kept boasting about my glorious achievements. Before long, we arrived at the supermarket, but I stopped in my tracks. Because there wasn't a single zombie in sight, I told them to stay put. At this moment, a monster with an alien appearance had long been lurking in the shadows, ready to strike. Come out. As soon as I finished speaking, it suddenly emerged from the ground. It raised the wrecked car in its hand high. Xia Ran and the others were startled. They quickly drew their guns and shouted for me to run, but I am not afraid at all. The infected suddenly threw something at me. Although I crouched and dodged, the loud noise quickly attracted other infected. Could this guy be a mutated level? The infected have already pounced on me. Fortunately, I was unharmed. I waved my hand as if to shake it off. It lunged at me again. I easily dodged it. If that strike had hit me, I definitely wouldn't have survived. But why don't I fight back? Just as Xia Ran was puzzled, she realized there was no place for her to land. And that's when the creature seized the opportunity and lunged at her. It opened its sharp claws. It looked like I was about to lose my life. The zombie's arm was sliced off in one strike. Why didn't I act sooner? And the zombie still hasn't fallen. I actually still had the presence of mind to watch the sword, feeling the pain from the severed arm. Just as it closed in on me, a Iado flashed past. Before the bereaved could react, his head exploded. The battle was over. Suddenly, something gathered towards my body. Not only was all my stamina restored, but I could grow from D class to C class within a year. As for why Gangqiu didn't attack, I motioned for a few people to look behind us. Although Xia Ran came from the military, she was still somewhat scared. Scared, but it was useless. She kept forcing herself to stay calm, truly deserving of being the future leader. I grabbed her hand and said, "Don't forget to call a third will over to take a look too." This outer layer on its body is an exoskeleton. Its body structure changed in just one day. Its hardness is now similar to metal. Therefore, bullets are useless against it. We can only avoid the exoskeleton. Precisely hitting the joints might be effective. It seems this intelligence must be reported to headquarters immediately. Back to Kuraman, before this it reigns supreme here. Aoman said. The ordinary infected will quickly gather here. We found 750 candles. We began preparing dinner. And we have to start with the food that has the shortest shelf life. After saying that, Xia Ran planned to stir-fry a few dishes. To our surprise, she was still from the mess hall. A hearty dinner was soon ready. It looks pretty good. I was startled. I didn't expect this familiar recipe to be 13 spices. In the future, this is a luxury item more precious than gold. I haven't tasted this in 10 years. Look at me, only eating vegetables, not the meat. Xia Ran was a little puzzled. Little did she know that after the land was reduced in the apocalypse, they could only rely on pills to absorb vitamins. I not only protected them, but now I'm pretending to eat vegetables. She felt particularly touched. Watching Xia Ran cry while eating, Yuqing thought, is the food really that good? No need. I gave them my remaining blanket. Just go to the corner and doze off for a while, but the two girls proactively suggested. To learn more about why I'm so strong. I was reborn, back 7 to 10 years ago. I gained another chance to evolve. I ventured into the evolution zone with the girls. First, I'll give them a basic understanding of the apocalypse. Currently, infected individuals are divided into 5 classes. They are, the wandering class. And there are also rare, specially evolved types. The wandering class is the most numerous. They are the initially unchanged infected. They will grow larger. And their strength and speed will also increase. Fortunately, humans can also evolve. I'm sure you've all noticed. After a whole day, I'm not tired at all. This shows that the evolutionary crystallization is affecting us. So I decided to use this, to train them how to fight against the infected. Facing this infected one, I stabbed its head with my sword. As the bereaved person completely died, energy began to converge towards my body. 2 infected people were approaching from a distance. It's time to leave them to them. Watching Yuqing lower her head in fear, I decided to help this high school girl become the future leader of China. For a future where she can stay by my side, she had made up her mind. The zombies charged forward. Xia Ran first blocked them with a knife. She suddenly threw it down and pinned it to the ground. She forcefully stabbed it into the zombie's skull. This gave her a brief respite. Meanwhile, it was the first time for Yuqing to face a zombie. She nervously sidestepped to avoid it. He shoved a wooden stick hard into the man's chin. It went straight through the mourner's head. She kept gasping for breath. It seems she's still shaken. Listen to my voice. Only then did she relax. After all, yesterday she was still an ordinary person. But today she has to face merciless killing. I patted her on the head. You've done very well. In the apocalypse, you can't easily pity others. Especially not infected ones. As the sky gradually brightened, we arrived at Building 7, an abandoned skyscraper. We need to help them quickly adapt to the survival ways of the apocalypse. Xia then looked toward the distance. That was the bus I was on before. It has now been completely burned. It seems someone really is after us. And in the direction I'm pointing, a group of people have already started to fight for the kite. The pyramid is dazzling under the sunlight. Suddenly, my chest feels warm. The evolution crystal actually resonated. A few energetic guys were charging forward. They watched as the monster turned to stone. They kept charging forward, saying that once they got the crystal, they would dominate the world. As he drove the car high into the air, his expression suddenly filled with fear. A huge pair of hands suddenly appeared. He slapped it to death in the palm of his hand. Everyone was shocked by this scene. The monster actually had 2, It is said that the Sphinx is the most cunning god in Egypt. It treated humans as playthings. It fooled everyone's eyes. It's like scratching an itch for itself, until someone threw dynamite. It destroyed its handsome face and let out a roar at humanity. The man continued to bombard it relentlessly, just when he thought he had succeeded. Little did he know, the guardian shook its face, and instantly returned to its original form. It turned out to be immortal, and it was too late to escape. The big cat. The guardian immediately became furious with embarrassment. It spread its wings and lunged at me. I could see its massive claws about to strike. At the moment of impact, I leaped into the air. Then I quickly darted through the gap. The guardian wasn't idle, either. A golden light appeared in its mouth. Then the sand quickly started to condense. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into the shape of a lion. It charged toward me in droves. I didn't expect the guardian to summon, and its speed was no slower than my motorcycle. Everyone thought I had given up, but little did they know, I turned and charged toward them, just as we were about to collide. With one swift motion, the knife strikes. All the lions are cut down. I never expected to use this move in the car. The pyramid lit up with a golden glow, then a roar followed. Immediately, my heart jolted. It felt as if a pair of eyes could see through my body. The guardian has caught up, and the speed was even faster than before. I casually picked up the explosives on the ground. Everyone thought I was doing something pointless, but as the fuse was lit, the guardian gave a wicked smile. It watched the direction the explosives were thrown. Then there was a loud explosion. Man said, a subway entrance appeared on the hill. Amidst everyone's astonished expressions, I revved the engine, leaped into the air, and then drove towards the subway entrance. Seeing that I was temporarily safe, Xia Ran suggested that we evacuate immediately, because our position had already been discovered, and the other party had guns to help them seize the crystals. Could it be a problem with me? Since absorbing the zombie crystal, I've been treated as a zombie by the guardians. Because of that, another guardian targeting zombies appeared. It's the one who's been eyeing me. We exited from the subway, but I didn't expect there to be power here. There's a large number of zombies. This is going to be fun. The leader ordered his men to seize the women. His lecherous underlings swarmed forward, but the next second, 2 gunshots cut them off. Tell Kulaman to call them off. So what if they're from the He River district? In their eyes, they're just 2 women to toy with. They were under heavy fire cover. They began a frantic pursuit, until they were driven into a dead end. Xia ran out of bullets. They approached the 2 with malicious intent. An engine sound approached. A figure sped past overhead, directly colliding with the pursuers. Under their surprised gazes, I slowly emerged from the corner. He's the one who dared to challenge the monster. He watched me, uninvited. Kid, your skills are impressive. I admire that. I'll give you a chance to cooperate. Otherwise, don't blame me if my gun doesn't have eyes. Little did I know, I just sneered. It's precisely because of people like you that humanity struggles to unite after a disaster. The harm caused by evil people only grows. After saying that, I clenched my fist. Keeping you around will only lead to humanity's destruction. I didn't waste any more words with him. Before they could react, a red lightning flashed across the necks of several people. Only their terrified expressions were left behind. They quickly shouted, unfocused gunfire. They didn't care at all about the lives of the little brothers. But every time I blink, I take down one person. Sooner or later, I'll kill them all. Xia Ran and the others finally breathed a sigh of relief. But in the next second, a large hand suddenly reached out toward them. It looked like they were about to be taken hostage by the leader. Just then, a gunshot rang out. The bullet pierced through the leader's chest. The leader had already fallen to the ground. Only then did the subordinates realize that the gun in their hands had disappeared. My head exploded in a second. You think I only know how to chop, but you're still alive. And you even said you'd personally flip a coin to decide life or death. That's quite interesting. The leader thought his scheme worked. But I blew his head off with one shot. Let's talk about it in the next life. After all, the infected will soon have to adjust to the daylight. Why? The killing spree is officially starting, and there are infected. Humans are competing with them through evolved abilities. As a reborn individual, I discovered clues about the first-generation evolution zone. It is compared to a guardian by the red beverage. In addition to its massive size, it also possesses immortality. To get the evolutionary crystal inside the pyramid, we must defeat the guardians. The real key is the Sphinx. The reason they were damaged earlier is because they're like containers. They can be exchanged without being broken. If we want to deal with the guardians, we must destroy the Sphinx simultaneously. Destroy him, and the interval between attacks can't be too long. This is undoubtedly a challenge for Xia and the others. And inside the pyramid, there are monsters more terrifying than the Sphinx, even more terrifying than the guardians. If no one retrieves the crystal before time runs out, it will emerge along with the guardians to massacre everyone. The massacre will continue until the required number is met. The two fell into deep thought. After all, they still don't know. There are only 3 evolution crystals in this evolution zone. And I had already prepared to face this alone. Fortunately, the 2 of them quickly regained their composure. All right. Zheng Ding made up his mind to prepare for battle. I tested the crystal's ability. My supernatural power could originally only enhance my body, but after absorbing the energy of the lost household, crimson crystals have formed within my body. I can greatly enhance myself. I can even detonate them for further enhancement. But to face the guardians, I need more crimson crystals to have a chance against them. I quickly plunged into battle. At the same time, I had them collect weapons, and formulated the next plan. This made Xia Ran start to doubt my identity. Why do I know so much? Seeing that I remained silent, what's needed is enough for you, she smiled awkwardly. No matter the outcome, it doesn't matter. She wants me to promise to leave together, but can I really do that? The group is gathering supplies. No. It seems that Xi Ping is heading towards the direction of the pyramid. At this moment, right in front of me, there stands a massive guardian. Without saying a word after seeing me, it summoned the little lion once again. The monster was chopped into pieces. With a loud bang, it exploded right on the guardian's face. Everyone thought I was wasting explosives. After all, they're useless against the guardian. More and more detonators were launched, the explosion instantly engulfing its head. But unbeknownst to them, my real target was actually the Sphinx behind it. By the time the guardian reacted, it was all too late. The sound of the explosion echoed loudly. Seeing this, it became furious. With a fierce stomp, it slammed the ground. The earth trembled and shook. A sharp spike suddenly shot up from the ground. It pierced straight through the motorcycle. I swiftly dodged and drew my longsword. I charged straight toward the guardian. What does it feel like to face the Sphinx in solo mode? Suddenly, a golden light shone from the pyramid. My body suddenly stiffened. The long sword couldn't even penetrate. The statue behind me has fully restored itself. It seems like those eyes are up to something again. Soon, the guardian's wounds were fully healed. A terrifying pressure instantly locked onto me. It opened its mouth wide and lunged at me. I told Yuqing to act immediately. The prepped drone took off instantly. It dropped the explosives towards the Sphinx. There was a huge boom. I challenged the guardian, saying, "Let's see how you switch your true form now." Several flashes of swords and blades passed by. My guess was indeed correct. As long as its true form is fixed in front of me, killing it is only a matter of time, but with the enhancement of the pyramid, the Guardian's abilities have also been boosted. From the very beginning, the goal wasn't to kill it, but to lure it here. Suddenly, the ground below shakes violently. A speeding subway suddenly emerged from beneath their feet. Before the Guardian could react, the subway crashed directly into its head. The tremendous impact left the Guardian no time to dodge. With a loud crash, it was done for. This is the power of steel civilization. A large number of zombies surged out from the subway entrance. They crawled past the Guardian's household. The monsters inside the pyramid are about to move out. Xia Ran immediately hopped on the motorcycle and sped toward the top of the pyramid with Yuqing. While that guy's attention was on the undead, I quickly climbed up the pyramid, but they soon caught up with me. A door suddenly appeared on the stone steps nearby. It was actually a figure completely dressed in black. Could it be the second Guardian? A sharp pain suddenly shot through my chest. The power of the blood-colored crystal inside me was instantly suppressed. My body was unable to move, but when I thought of Xia Ran and the others, I knew we had to obtain the evolution crystal today. More and more undead began to climb up. They went through that gate one after another. Could it be that the Guardian is absorbing power? As I drew closer, my body began to shake uncontrollably. It seemed something was calling to me. My eyes turned gold. Now I'm reduced to running a dilapidated video store. I even made a fearsome name for myself in the martial arts world. Facing Li Yan's attitude, Lei Jing was somewhat displeased, but she didn't say anything. She took out a business card and gently placed it on the table. My grandfather once said that martial artists should first cultivate 3 parts of malice in their hearts. Among so many younger generations, only you, senior brother, have fully cultivated these 3 parts of malice. Suddenly, a hand blocked the rolling door. A decayed and dilapidated face appeared before Li Yan. Li Yan's pupils constricted. It was the driver who had just left. A fierce whip-leg kick attacked Li Yan. Li Yan raised his arm to block it. The immense force sent Li Yan flying. Li Yan was secretly shocked. This guy was definitely not human. Before Li Yan could get up, the monster launched another kick. Li Yan struck directly at the monster's joint with a right punch. He shattered the joint with a single blow. The monster, losing its balance, immediately knelt before Li Yan. The two locked eyes, and the atmosphere was incredibly eerie. Li Yan reached out and gripped the monster's shoulder. With a powerful twist, he slammed the monster to the ground. A loud snap echoed. The monster's right hand was violently severed by Li Yan. Watching the monster for a long time without any reaction, Li Yan let out a sigh of relief. He turned around to look for his phone. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the monster suddenly sprang up. It opened its mouth wide and lunged at Li Gu. Feeling the murderous intent behind him, Li Yan twisted his waist, spun, and delivered a flying kick. The immense force caused the monster's head to twist several times. He collapsed to the ground, motionless. Suddenly, Li Yan felt his mind become fuzzy and fainted. When Li Yan woke up again, a short, chubby man appeared before him, and the monster from before had already vanished. Impressive, they say the Li family of Hejin excels in both guns and swords. I didn't expect their grappling skills to be so sharp as well. Li Yan suddenly noticed behind the chubby man. It was pitch black with no light at all. It was indescribably eerie. He looked at the fat man and asked him back, noticing Li Jian's somewhat unfriendly gaze. The fat man stated that he had no relation to those two. The creature just borrowed a thought from that man. To say hello to you. It was just a self-introduction. You can call me Wang Yang. Or you can call me by another name. Li Yan glanced at him and smiled slightly. Wang Yang was startled. Then he burst into laughter. This kid is really interesting. Then his expression turned serious, and he said to Li Yan, I can save your life. But not in the way you think. It's not a bone marrow match. That's child's play. I can offer you something much better. Li Yan believed there's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything that happened today was strangely suspicious. After a moment of thought, he asked directly, what do you need me to do? Wang Yang spread his hands, and said directly, why not give it a try and see? But this is a road with no turning back. Li Yan smiled slightly. It sounds much better than waiting to die. Tell me more. The fat guy grinned. His expression turned unusually dark and solemn. Then the terrified Li Yan was completely engulfed. A faint and ethereal voice rang out. Welcome to the Yanfu world. How strong is this man, exactly? Just now, Li Yan was swallowed by the black wave behind the fat man. Li Yan felt himself continuously falling. Strange and bizarre visions appeared before his eyes. Black iron chains stretched across the sky. A mysterious, ancient palace. Countless powerful and mysterious figures. Crimson blood wraps around Li Yan's body. Li Yan's vision is completely red. His whole body is shackled by iron chains. The wings on his back are pierced by iron chains. His head is covered in blood. At this moment, the eerie sound rang out again. It woke him up, my walking. Li Yan couldn't make a sound, constantly questioning in his mind. The cold darkness swallowed Li Yan once more. What came into view was a boxing ring. The surrounding chaotic shouts and the sharp stench made him feel somewhat disoriented. Is this underground fighting? What about that fat guy? Suddenly, a voice sounded. Welcome to Yanfu, traveler. We thought you had prepared a new identity. That wouldn't raise any suspicions. Rest assured, 'cause a big scene if you like. At the same time, a task frame appeared in Li Yan's pupils. Looking at the dialogue box, Li Yan began to analyze carefully. There are 3 requirements to complete this mission. 2. Have Xing Qian fight until the 7th round on the Julong boxing arena. 3. Obtain any fragment of an ancient novel or historical record. As long as one of the conditions is met, the Yanfu incident will officially begin. If you lose in a fight, you cannot lose the match. If you lose the match, you'll immediately return to the original world. Did that fat guy give me the purchase permission? Innate ancient martial arts 81%. Does this mean there's room for improvement? As Li Yan was thinking, Li Yan swiftly grabbed the opponent's fist. Turning around, he saw a middle-aged man in a suit. At that moment, the middle-aged man was glaring at Li Yan, while angrily urging him to get in the ring and fight. Li Yan said nothing and continued to think. There's no reason my illness can't be cured. Let's assess the situation first. The boxer's name is Chache. He's a disciple of the famous boxer, the Comet of Southern Thailand, Nai Fo. Suddenly, a roar like a tidal wave erupted from the crowd. A man with dark skin and a muscular build climbed into the ring. It was the boxer Chache. Suddenly, Cha Kai seemed to sense Li Yan's gaze. He immediately pointed at Li Yan and selected him to go on stage. Li Yan walked slowly towards the ring. He noticed that a faint red glow was emanating from Cha Kai's body. Cha Kai looked at Li Yan, who seemed to be lacking in vitality. He thought to himself, first match, huh? I'll just pick on an easy target and get a few hits in. The real fight comes later. Cha Kai charged forward. He used a knee strike, forcing Li Yan to retreat. Immediately following, Cha Kai threw another fierce and fast straight punch. Li Yan sidestepped to evade the attack. He raised his left hand, deflecting Cha Kai's right punch. His right hand went straight for Cha Kai's throat. Cha Kai didn't expect Li Yan to be so fast. Li Yan went straight through Cha Kai's right arm. He went around behind Cha Kai. He kicked him hard in the knee. A searing pain shot through him. Cha Kai's legs buckled. He knelt directly on the ring. In the front row of the stands, a man in a floral shirt muttered to himself, Bagwazang. At this time, Cha Kai also shakily stood up. Li Yan dashed forward. He threw a right jab towards Cha-Chai's face. Cha-Chai cautiously protected his face, blocking the punch. Li Yan fiercely kicked Cha-Chai with his right leg. Cha-Chai could only endure the intense pain and block with a knee strike. There was a cracking sound. Cha-Chai's knee was brutally shattered by Li Yan's kick. This man is a once-in-a-century martial arts genius. A month ago, he was diagnosed with a terminal illness. To seek treatment, he was led into the Yanfu world. Li Yan struck directly, shattering Cha-Chai's knee. Cha-Chai collapsed to the ground, constantly howling in pain. Li Yan coldly looked at the referee and said, "Announce it." The host stared blankly at Cha-Chai on the ground. He calmed himself down. Only then did he announce Li Yan's victory. But Li Yan had no intention of leaving the stage and gently asked, "Aren't we supposed to fight through all the rounds? Who's next?" Suddenly, laughter was heard. It came from the man who had seen through Li Yan's tactics earlier in the stands. "Young man, the fighting ring in Longqing only opens when there's a bet placed. If no one plays B, then you can only play T. Do you want to fight against my guy? Win or lose, this 50,000 is yours." He finished speaking and took out a thick stack of cash from his pocket. Li Yan looked at the man, who was wearing a floral shirt. His chest was open, revealing a yasha tattoo. Li Yan thought to himself, based on the prices in the 80s, this 50,000 should be a huge sum of money. I can only stay for a month. Even if I have more money, I can't take it with me. Just as I was about to refuse, a prompt suddenly appeared in my vision. Valuables worth 50,000 yuan. Can be exchanged for 5 points of Yanfu points. After seeing the prompt, Li Yan immediately changed his mind. The reason you came here must be to treat your illness. This Yanfu spot should be useful. And the middle-aged man who had previously made things difficult for Li Yan, came over with a flattering expression and said to him, "Jiu Gu, if you're happy and willing to bet on a fight, you can choose any fighter here. But having your person get on the stage is against the rules." Brother Jiu suddenly laughed. "Fatty, are you out of your mind? I've paid you in full. Which committee rule prohibits outsiders from performing on stage?" Before the fatty could speak, Hua Shanjiu directly kicked the fatty flying. Then, the fatty helplessly, "You did a good job, tell Li Gu. That person is the one in charge of Liansheng. You should make it look good. Take a few punches and lie on the ground, then you'll get 50,000 yuan. Li Yan had a look that seemed to understand. He wiped his nose with his hand. It was still bleeding, more nosebleed dripping out. At this moment, Li Yan wasn't in a good condition. His body was accompanied by a high fever, bleeding, and inflammation. But only by feeling the intensity of the match just now. And that punch landing on flesh can prove that you're still alive. At this moment, Hua Shanjiu looked at the young man beside him and said with a smile, "I know you can't wait. Go ahead and have some fun." He knew that Xiao Zhou hadn't just learned a few years of flashy moves, but had been practicing martial arts for over a decade. He was more than capable of opening a dojo and taking on students. To avenge this arrow, Xiao Zhou stood up. He jumped directly from the stands onto the ring. He bowed slightly to Li Yan and softly said, "Do family boxing, Zhou Weidao, I humbly request a match." Li Yan frowned slightly. Hejianli Pavilion. Observing Li Yan's attitude, a flash of anger crossed Xiao Zhou's eyes. He flashed forward. His elbow struck Li Yan's chest. Simultaneously, he kicked Li Yan's abdomen with his right leg. Li Yan reacted extremely quickly, blocking the elbow with his left arm. He then used his right hand to seize the opponent's right leg. Xiao Zhou immediately retracted his elbow. He punched Li Yan in the face with his right hand. The fierce force of the punch blew Li Yan's hair. Li Yan quickly blocked the attack with a palm. His body retreated, using the force. This Du family fist technique is interesting. As expected, a master. Looks like I underestimated the fortress before. Xiao Zhou coldly stared at Li Yan and said slowly. Li Yan gave a slight smile. He spoke softly. "I just didn't expect that a small-time thug involved in shady deals would actually be a master of the Du family fist style. Now I have to get serious." Immediately, Li Yan moved forward like a ghost. In just an instant, he was right in front of Zhou Weidao. Li Yan also quickly took a few steps back. A young man with red hair, wearing a leather jacket, walked toward them slowly, followed by a group of underlings. Hua Shanjiu leaned against his seat, his eyes coldly fixed on the red-haired young man. He said, "Red Devil, what are you doing here?" Li Yan finally found a way to cure his fatal illness, but the price is to earn 3 million within a month. Red Devil stopped Li Yan and Zhou Weidao's match with a single sentence. Regarding Red Devil's actions, Hua Shanjiu was somewhat displeased. His expression also darkened. He pushed up his glasses and said, "Is it not possible for us to go to Longcheng with Liancheng to watch the fight?" The young man named Hong Gui lightly lit a cigarette. He took a puff and said, "We are with Tai Shui, after all. We're just making a living by fighting in the ring, but you treat my boxing ring like a chicken farm. Come and go as you please, come up whenever you want. That's breaking the rules." Hua Shanjiu smiled faintly. "Let me be direct then. My little Zhou has been wanting to find a Baguazhang master to team up with. I, Hua Shanjiu, don't want to cause trouble. I don't want to break the rules of Longqing either. Just do me a favor, let them have a fight." The Red Ghost took a deep drag of his cigarette and slowly shook his head. "Rules are rules. I don't care about anything else. If your people go on stage today, it's causing trouble in Longqing." Hua Shanjiu's face turned terrifyingly dark at this moment. He didn't say a word. I don't know what he's thinking. And Xiao Zhou, who was listening to their conversation, knew that if he didn't do something now, today's situation would be hard to resolve. He leaped down from the ring, and said to the Red Ghost, "Are you saying that as long as I follow the rules and get in the ring to fight, can I fight him then?" Hong Gui rolled his eyes and smiled at Xiao Zhou. "Then you have to start from the first match. As long as the committee determines that your scores are close, and someone else steps down, then there's no problem." Xiao Zhou smiled slightly. He called out to Hua Shanjiu, "Brother Jiu." Hua Shanjiu understood Xiao Zhou's meaning perfectly. He said lightly, "Suit yourself." Then he left with a group of his younger brothers. Xiao Zhou walked up to Li Yan, bowed, and said, "There aren't many people who practice traditional martial arts on the Longqing boxing stage. When I've established myself on the Longqing boxing stage, we'll have a good fight." Li Yan nodded and said, "Does your ninth brother's offer of 50,000 still stand?" Xiao Zhou was stunned for a moment. He awkwardly nodded. At this moment, a long-lost mission window appeared in Li Yan's eyes. "You can freely use this skill, Glimpse of the Swan. You can freely use this to obtain others' personal information. You can freely use this with a certain chance to discover their weaknesses. You can freely use this, each use consumes 1 Yanfu point. You can freely use this, or you can permanently purchase it for 10 Yanfu points." When he saw the two items below, a gleam flashed in Li Yan's eyes. ES Hematopoietic Cell Enhancer. One requires 10 points to control his condition. The other requires 300 points to cure his illness completely. It will disappear after 3 uses, but I don't have so many events to wait for the 3 times of the Yanfu incidents. I must accumulate enough Yanfu points here. That is, I must earn enough money. At night, Longqing is a place of neon lights, drunken revelry, and numerous gangs. The whole area exudes a decaying atmosphere. On the rooftop at this moment, Red Ghost is telling Li Yan the story of Longqing. Longqing is famously a place with no control. Every year, countless fugitives escape here. Some become enforcers, others step into the ring. Here, the committee is everything, and Tai Shui is an executive member of the committee. Basically, it's all about eating by following Tai Shui. The behind-the-scenes boss of all the fight ring businesses in Longqing is Tai Shui. As long as you stick with Tai Shui, money, a woman gets whatever she wants. However, what Li Yan cares about is not these things. What he needs most right now is money. He asks the Red Ghost about the prize money for the fight. The answer the Red Ghost gives makes Li Yan feel. A disgusting smell fills the dark alley. While looking for a dormitory, Li Yan encounters a 13 or 14-year-old girl. "Do you know where room 413 is?" In response to Li Yan's inquiry, the little girl's eyes showed both caution and a hint of fear, but she still led Li Yan to the residence. Just as the little girl hesitated about whether to take it, a woman's voice suddenly came from the nearby room. The little girl hurriedly said goodbye to Li Yan, and ran back home. Li Yan opened the door and lay directly on the bed. Recalling today's experiences, he gradually fell asleep. Late night, in a certain gambling den. He asked, "How much is this worth?" Inside was a pale yellow sheet of Xian paper. On it was painted a lifelike Lanyo, a mythical creature. It was actually a fragment of the Gaochen records. Can you believe it? The male lead was actually noticed by this sexy and alluring, charming and attractive rich woman. Li Yan's palm slashed down, landing squarely on his opponent's head. Then another punch sent the net hand flying, directly knocking him unconscious. This was already the fifth boxer he had defeated today. At this point it was already clear that Li Yan was not at the standard for the fourth broadcast. It was no longer good for him to stay in the fourth ring. Hong Gui leaned against the edge of the ring, and waved his hand, signaling for Li Yan to get down. He said, "If you keep fighting like this, BC won't fight with you anymore. Go to the big venue for your last match tomorrow." Hong Gui threw away the cigarette butt and took Li Yan to the Fui building. Fui building is located on Longjin Road. It is a rather imposing dark blue-black building. Those who come to Fui building to watch the fight spend at least 1 to 200,000 a night. But to establish yourself here, you must find a big investor to back you up. Once inside, you see a woman in her 30s, lounging lazily on the sofa. Big B's wavy hair, long legs, and wasp waist, charming phoenix eyes and slightly upturned red lips. Countless charms are hard to describe. After seeing Hongui come in, the woman said with displeasure, "Hongui, you scoundrel, you finally deigned to appear. Did you know I came to Longcheng, and deliberately avoid me?" This woman's name is Judy. Her husband, before his death, was a justice of the peace, worth over 100 million. Since her husband's death, Judy has become obsessed with violence and bloodshed. Now she's become the major sponsor of the Longqing fighting ring. Hong Gui immediately put on an innocent look. Then he quickly pulled Li Yan over. Li Yan managed a weak smile and offered a greeting. Judy looked Li Yan up and down. She whispered, "You look pretty good. I just wonder if it's all for show. Don't get knocked down after a couple of rounds on stage, or I'll lose face. Why don't you fight, Ahong? How much money, sis? I'll support you." Before Red Ghost could speak, Li Yan directly laughed and said, "Sister Judy, you're joking. Red Ghost is my boss. If I let my boss personally step in, I might as well go jump into the sea." Hearing Li Yan say this, Judy flashed a sweet smile, and immediately stood up from the sofa. She leaned forward, almost pressing against Li Yan, and whispered, "If you can hold on, sister will definitely treat you well." Li Yan's temples twitched slightly, but his face still wore a smile. It was completely unreadable. Then, the Red Ghost pulled Li Yan toward the boxing ring, while also teasing him along the way. Sister Judy is a very valuable connection. Getting close to her will definitely lead to great success. Li Yan knew that if he won today's match, 3 million, he would get 3 million. Standing on the boxing ring, Li Yan looked at his last opponent today. His face was a little pale, and he was wearing a training suit. This man's name is Kiyoshi Minami. He is a wanted serial killer from Japan, skilled in B-class and QX, master of the Okinawan Goju-ryu karate techniques. And tonight, before Li Yan, he had already won 3 consecutive matches. 3 opponents either severely injured or dead. As the white towel fell to the ground, Li Yan immediately charged forward. His right hand swept out like lightning, striking against the arm that Kudo Nan used to block. The left palm strikes towards Cheng Hudong's neck. Cheng Hudong sidesteps and twists his waist to dodge. The left arm directly hits Li Yan's arm. The right hand extends forward and grabs Li Yan's right shoulder. Judy, at this moment, watches Li Yan in the ring without blinking. She silently feels anxious for him. She knows that all previous opponents who had their shoulders grabbed by Cheng Hudong were inevitably defeated by his joint lock techniques. This is the crucial moment that decides victory or defeat. The moment he grabbed Li Yan's arm, a slight smile appeared on Jodo Minami's lips. Unexpectedly, Li Yan suddenly kicked his right leg upwards. The fiercely kicked heel landed brutally on Jodo Minami's groin. The kick caused Jodo Minami to throw his head back. His right hand immediately released Li Yan's arm. The Red Devil in the audience saw Li Yan's performance. This kid is ruthless. I heard he stayed in Guangdong for many years. He grabbed Cheng Hunan's wrist in one swift motion. He said that the style of Gong Ro was passed down from Southern Fist's Crane Gate. Today, I'll have you pay respects to the ancestor. Li Yan's fingers turned into claws. His left hand's 3 fingers came together, forming a bird's beak. It jabbed towards his armpit like an iron spike. Chengdu Nan didn't retreat. He endured the intense pain and crashed into Li Yan's arms. He opened his mouth to bite Li Yan's ear, before Chengdu Nan got close. Immediately, Li Yan's hands moved like arrows. As Li Yan's fists slowly stopped, Chengdu Nan fell heavily to the ground. He was lifeless. The audience in the stands went wild. They were all shouting for Li Yan to come back for another round. At this moment, in the VIP box, Judy, watching Li Yan, had a flushed face, and was drenched in sweat. Her eyes were filled with a dazed look. This might be the most pathetic gangster I've ever seen. He actually peed his pants after Li Yan's move. Li Yan easily defeated Cheng Huanan in the ring. He went to the restroom and calmed himself down. This was the first time in his life that he had hurt someone. As for someone like Cheng Huanan, he had no sympathy for him. He knew well that this was not a place for kindness. A fierce tiger shows no mercy. In front of X, everything is a hurdle. Since we've come this far, 3 million. The ancient novel's notes may still have other items. I must keep everything in my hands. This should be the special ability of Yen Fu's walking. Anyone with hostility toward me will radiate a red light. The greater the threat, the darker the color. Upon seeing Li Yan's arrival, the red ghost directly took out a stack of cash and handed it to Li Yan. Go accompany Judy tomorrow. He instructed Li Yan to open a bank account. The money from winning the boxing match would be deposited into it. After taking care of some small matters, he dragged Li Yan out for a late-night snack. Through these days of interaction, Li Yan felt that this young man, called Hong Gui, was much more considerate than he had imagined. The two didn't go to a high-end place, but instead arrived at a hot pot stand in a small alley. After a few rounds of drinks, the two were chatting happily. A commotion of shouting and scolding caught Li Yan's attention. A young man with a nose ring was pointing at the wet patch on his pants. He was cursing a 13 or 14-year-old girl angrily. The girl kept apologizing repeatedly. At this moment, Li Yan recognized the girl. She was Ah Xiu, the neighbor who had guided him earlier. Ah! The man with the nose ring waved his hand. Ah Xiu instinctively dodged. This made the man even angrier. A large slap landed on Ah Xiu's face. Ah Xiu felt pain, tears welling up at the corner of his eyes. His whole body was trembling uncontrollably. Just as the man raised his hand again, his wrist suddenly shot with a sharp pain. Then, a size 42 footprint landed on his face. The immense force sent him flying backward. Li Yan smiled and stood in front of Axiu. Soaked and bundled up. Let me apologize to you on behalf of the little girl, okay? At that moment, several people suddenly stood up around Li Yan. More than a dozen young men, each wielding a K-knife, glared menacingly at Li Gu. At this moment, the man with the nose ring stood up as well. He took a K-knife from his subordinate's hand. He pointed it at Li Yan and said viciously, "You dare to hit someone from Shanchang? You like being a hero so much? If you're so capable, go ahead and chop me to death." Before the man with the nose ring could finish speaking, Li Yan suddenly raised his hand and knocked the knife away. He grabbed the K-knife and swung it fiercely at the man with the nose ring. The sound of the blade slicing through the collar made the man with the nose ring instantly collapse. He dropped to the ground, paralyzed. A warm liquid began to flow from his pants. At this moment, the red ghost also looked over. With a grim expression, he said, "Are you going to cut him?" When the man with the nose ring saw it was the red ghost, he was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat and trembled as he said, "Red Ghost, you're here too." Red Ghost said while eating, "I come to this place often. Little sister, your work is not easy. Just apologize, clear the table, and leave quickly. Upon hearing this, the guy with the nose ring felt as if he had been pardoned. With a warm and friendly expression, he went over to apologize to Ashio. The two of them continued eating for a while. Before leaving, the Red Ghost handed Li Yan a mobile phone, and told him to dress stylishly tomorrow, and wait for his call to meet Judy. Back home, Li Yan was sweating profusely from the pain. Another wave of intense pain hit him. Li Yan could no longer bear it, and collapsed to the floor, losing consciousness. It's said that when fellow villagers meet, they give each other a cue. What he said is absolutely true. The intense bone pain caused Li Yan to faint. After a long time, Li Yan slowly regained consciousness. The bone pain gradually faded away. He quickly took out some painkillers and swallowed them. He muttered to himself, "As soon as I left the arena, my bones started to ache. Drinking with the Red Ghost made it even worse." There are 13 points of Yenfu on my hand now. It seems I need to exchange for the ES cell enhancer first. Otherwise, I might collapse in the ring. And there are still no leads on the ancient text of hooking into the past. Lying in bed, I thought about the current situation. Gradually, I fell into a deep sleep. The Kowloon-walled city was as cramped and dark as ever. I had long since gotten used to the frequent acts of violence on the streets. Nothing surprised me anymore. A hurried figure bumped directly into Li Yan. Li Yan instinctively grabbed the other person's wrist. Unexpectedly, the person reacted just as he did, grabbing his own wrist. Li Yan was secretly startled. It was the military's close combat grappling technique. Both simultaneously released their grip and stepped back. The man was in his 30s, wearing worn-out suit. He had neatly cut short hair. There's a noticeable scar on his cheek. The man greeted Li Yan with a simple, good-natured smile. Through their conversation, it was learned that the man's name was He Anong. He and Li Yan were practically fellow countrymen. He came to Hong Kong with a few brothers, to see if there were any opportunities to make money. Just as they were chatting happily, Li Yan's phone suddenly rang. It was Red Ghost who made the call. The police have already received the news. They told Li Yan to be careful and try not to go out. Upon hearing this, Li Yan hurriedly hung up the phone. He chuckled at He Anong, saying his friend had drunk too much. But He Anong, standing nearby, had already heard everything clearly. Seeing Ashio's appearance, Li Yan was startled. He hurriedly crouched down and asked, "Axiu, do you have any spare change? Could you go to the street and buy a bag of candy for Brother Yen?" Axiu nodded obediently. Holding the cat, she ran to the street corner. Watching Axiu leave, Li Yan slowly turned around. Unbeknownst to him, He Anong behind him had a gloomy expression. A dark gun muzzle was pressed against Li Yan's head. "I don't want to either." He Anong holds the gun very steadily. You can tell he has undergone long-term training. At this moment, Li Yan's eyes gleam with a red light, and the stunning hawk alert is activated. The target has been locked. He Anong. You have obtained the following information. Name, He Anong. Specialization in firearms, 39%. Dangerous skills, well-trained. Danger level, enhancement of overall combat abilities. Threat level, deep crimson. Although there is help from the system, Li Yan still did nothing. He knew that if he made any sudden move, He Anong would not hesitate to pull the trigger. But my own Bagwazang, Mingaquan, and my 81% ancient martial arts talent, are all useless against firearms. Then He Anong led Li Yan on a winding path, to an inconspicuous small clinic. As soon as they entered, He Anong instructed his subordinate, to tie Li Yan's hands with rope. Li Yan thought to himself, He Anong is really meticulous in his work. When the doctor in the room saw He Anong bringing someone else in, he started to complain. He Anong smiled and assured him that he'd leave more money. The doctor immediately changed his attitude, saying we're all friends, and should help each other. But unexpectedly, just as he turned around, he was suddenly struck down in the northwest. This man is incredible. He actually took down 4 armed thugs, with his bare hands while being trapped. He Anong guessed that the police were able to find them so quickly. because the doctor was the main suspect. Without hesitation, he decisively sent the doctor away, and told everyone to move immediately. Li Yan thought to himself. He and Dong is quite a character, tough and decisive. If he doesn't leave now, once he's trapped, there's no way out. A middle-aged man named Gao Cheng pointed at the young man lying in bed and asked, "What should we do about Xiao Jin?" He and Dong quickly walked over, grasped Xiao Jin's hand, and told him that in Hong Kong, if you don't engage in drug trafficking, you won't face the death penalty. I hope Xiao Jin stays to treat him. Wait for the storm to pass. I will go to J prison and rescue him myself. Xiao Jin opened his mouth, and the more he listened, the more shocked he became. He couldn't believe that this was his most trusted big brother. At that moment, a man beside them shouted directly, "No way! We entrusted our lives to you. Is this how you treat your own brothers?" He pulled out the gun and pointed it at Hianong. Hianong also raised his hand and pressed the gun against the man's forehead. The man was furious. He kicked the suitcase off the table, sending it crashing to the floor. What's the use of having life to grab but no life to spend? New Hong Kong dollars scattered all over the floor. 2 yellowed sheets of rice paper also fell to the ground. Li Yan looked at the current situation. He knew his chance had come. He grabbed Gao Cheng. He plunged the scalpel into his neck. He said to Hianong, "If I pull this out, he'll die instantly." At this point, everyone stopped arguing. They all pointed their guns at Li Yan. The scene became a tense standoff. He and Dong, who was concerned about their brotherhood, finally compromised and said, "Fellow villager, I'll admit defeat today. How about we throw Q, and you release the person?" Li Yan immediately agreed, but his eyes were fixed on He and Dong, carefully observing every movement he made. 1, 2, 3. As soon as He and Dong's voice fell, he threw the hand Q forward. Li Yan directly pulled out the scalpel. Gao Cheng's eyes had lost their luster. Blood spurted out of his neck like a fountain. He and Dong crouched and rolled forward. He quickly picked up the hand Q like lightning. He raised his hand and aimed in one smooth motion. At the same time, as he and Dong reached for the hand Q, Li Yan twisted his wrist and cut the rope. He picked up a broken scalpel blade and threw it at Hianong. His phone fell to the ground. Li Yan pushed off the ground with his legs and charged forward. His knee struck Hianong just above the throat. He sent him flying. With another tiger-like leap, he charged towards another man with a gun. The man instinctively fired. With the blessing of the Jinghong Yi Jing, Li Yan barely managed to dodge the bullet. This man was directly taken out. At this moment, Hianong stared at his partner, his eyes bloodshot. Without thinking, Li Yan grabbed the scalpel on the table, and prepared to end Hiandong's life. Li Yan felt his leg freeze. To his surprise, Xiao Jin on the bed had wrapped both hands around his leg. I wanted to buy Hianong some time to escape. Li Yan turned around, his hand swiftly grabbing the scalpel. He plunged it into Xiao Jin's temple. Xiao Jin's death bought Hianong precious time. By this time, he had successfully retrieved the Q from the ground. Li Yan leaped. The scalpel in his hand plunged down, and Hianong raised his arm. The dark Q-shaped mouth was aimed directly at Li Gu. With a bang, Q fired. The entire room fell silent. A system voice rang out in Li Yan's mind. This Jinghong Yi Jing state lasted 9 minutes and 43 seconds. No target weaknesses were discerned. 5 yen floating points consumed. You have released the lock on the target. Can you believe it? Such a delicate, beautiful woman has such an unusual hobby. Just now, she arrived at the Longqing police station. Li Yan, who had just given her statement. It turns out Hianong and his group hacked into Y Bank, and stole a batch of antiques. Those fragments should have been 5. They were meant for auction. Unexpectedly, by a twist of fate, the originally clueless fragments, I unexpectedly obtained 2. Could the remaining 3 have been stolen by them? And I unexpectedly obtained 2 fragments. Officially beginning this Yanfu incident. The event requires following the system task prompts. The most important thing about this event is, in this Yanfu event, if I fail to obtain the purchase authority, and the more fragments I obtain, the greater my own earnings will be at the final settlement. Fortunately, if fragments appear within 5 kilometers, the system will issue a notification. Otherwise, it would undoubtedly be like searching for a needle in a haystack. It seems I need to explore other avenues. He met Hong Gui waiting for him outside the police station. I appreciate your help, brother Hong Gui. It was Taisui who put in a word. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten out so quickly. Judy paid your bail. You should thank her properly. Li Yan looked reluctant. Hong Gui hurriedly said again, she's worth hundreds of millions. With long legs, a big bust, and a pretty face. She's throwing herself at you, and you're still unwilling. Just like that, Judy linked arms with Li Yan, and they went shopping like a couple. Inside a high-class restaurant, Li Yan and Judy sat opposite each other. But Li Yan truly felt heartbroken. Looking at Judy's beautiful face, Li Yan gently asked Judy, how much do you know about me? I can understand someone paying to promote a fighter to the stage, but I can't quite understand why a woman would invite a man who just killed 4 people to dinner. Judy did not answer Li Yan's question. He asked Li Yan, when Hong Gui introduced me, he probably said something like, a big money bag from Longqing City or something. When you saw me, what did you think? Li Yan slowly lit a cigarette and said, at that time, I thought, this woman is worth hundreds of millions. If she's desperate, a little tapping will be enough to get through the rest of my life. Judy's expression faltered for a moment. She gazed at Li Yan with a bewildered look and smiled faintly. Though it's a bit hurtful, I like honest people. If you really did kidnap me, is it really just for money? She then raised her high heel and lightly hooked the hem of Li Yan's pants. Judy tilted her head, propping her face in her hand. She gazed at Li Yan, who continued. Some people are terrified, even disgusted by bloodlust and violence. Others, however, are deeply fascinated. I belong to the latter. She finished, her face flushed. Then she beckoned Li Yan with a finger. She beckoned Li Yan with a finger. She leaned forward, her eyes shyly looking at Li Yan. She slightly licked her lips. A breath full of fragrance sprayed onto Li Yan's face. The first time I saw you boxing that day, I was so excited, I couldn't control myself. Li Yan swallowed unconsciously. He instinctively shrank back. I thought to myself, this woman is truly no ordinary person. The old man was so flustered by a few words that he lost his composure. Seeing this, Judy smiled dreamily. The dinner was over. Li Yan walked alone through the dim alley. Suddenly, a burning pain surged in his chest. System prompt. The location of the ancient novel's fragment has been reported. A three-dimensional map suddenly appeared in front of him. It is the complete geographical layout of the Kowloon walled city. The target is moving further away, now only 100 meters away. Li Yan tightly locked onto the target and ran after it at full speed. He passed through 7 or 8 alleys. The system's voice sounded again. Duration, 1 minute. Although he didn't catch up, it at least confirmed that there are still 2 fragments of the page in the walled city. Can you believe it? This sunny, pretty girl next door is actually the mastermind behind Longqing Mountain Village. Li Yan is holding 2 fragments in his hand at this moment. Guhua bird. And that self-proclaimed fat man. These should all be gods and monsters from Chinese mythology, right? Could they all actually exist? That fat man truly brought me to this Kowloon walled city. The effect of that fleeting glimpse was indeed incredible. And then there was that voice calling itself Yamfu, the Wanderer. What exactly is Yamfu? And what about the person holding the torn pages? Whenever I get close to him, he moves away. If I ignore him, he quietly approaches. The person who possesses the fragmented scroll seems to know of my existence. In other words, they know I exist. I'm not the only Yanfu walker in this world. They're so cautious, they're not going to be easy to deal with. I guess anyone who can become a Yanfu walker isn't someone to be trifled with. Lest I have a seizure in the ring. I directly spent 10 Yanfu points to buy a hematopoietic enhancer. It takes effect immediately. Li Yan soon felt his eyelids getting heavy. He slowly drifted off to sleep. The next day, when Li Yan opened his eyes again, with each breath, he felt a sense of exhilarating refreshment. He felt no more pain or discomfort. As if completely recovered, Li Yan stood up. His palms, one forward, one back. His feet shifted and locked. Suddenly exerting force, his inner energy flowed, his fist like a dragon. The powerful force hit the wall, causing a loud boom. Inside a high-class private room in Fui building, Hong Gui held a stack of documents and examined them carefully. He asked the middle-aged man across from him, did Tai Sui really go to see him personally? The middle-aged man was named Liao Jizong. He was the top agent for the first boxing match in Kowloon Walled City. Looking at the materials on the table, Liao Jizong spoke softly. Su Shangtian, IP Man's direct disciple, one of the four kings of Wing Chun. He had a 32-fight winning streak in Kowloon Walled City's boxing ring. No one in Kowloon Walled City dared to step onto the ring after that. The underground boxing ring in Fuki building. Li Yen sat in the stands, intently watching the fight below. The fighters were Xiao Zhou and a veteran Vietnamese soldier. Their weapons of choice. The soldier wielded two three-edged J-shaped daggers, while Xiao Zhou wore a pair of knuckle dusters. Compared to weapons, Xiao Zhou's knuckle dusters are at a disadvantage, but from the current situation, Xiao Zhou still has the upper hand. Just as Li Yan was watching intently, a slender, fair hand patted Li Yan's shoulder. Brother, do you mind if I sit next to you? Li Yan looked up. It's a woman in sportswear. She has delicate features and long, elegant eyebrows and eyes. Her long, single ponytail reaches her waist. Li Yan smiled slightly at the woman. Not at all. The woman lazily stretched. Her long legs were devoid of any excess fat. Her perfect figure was undeniable. The woman sat down beside Li Yan. She took a small porcelain bottle from her pocket. She drank it down in one gulp. A strong smell of alcohol wafted out. Li Yan was startled. He chuckled. Not many women enjoy drinking hard liquor. A bad habit. She can't quit. The woman calmly watches the two on the arena. She slowly speaks. Her hands are infused with the essence of the Wenqing fist. Wenqing fist features long strides and a stable stance. Mantis fist steps are light and agile. To merge the two to this extent, it's truly impressive. This kid can be considered a genius. Xiao Zhou's family's martial art is Dujiaquan. It's one of the four famous boxing styles of Shandong. It also has the reputation of scholarly fist. So the scholarly fist the woman mentioned is Dujiaquan. At this point, Xiao Zhou has firmly gained the upper hand. He steps forward with his right foot, his knee pressing against the opponent's knee joint. The veteran loses his balance, revealing an opening. Xiao Zhou lands a powerful punch, sending his opponent flying. Seeing that Xiao Zhou had already won, the woman murmured to herself again. The Red Ghost's subordinate, the one who practices Bagua Palm, is seasoned and ruthless. His experience is above this person. But his internal energy is weak, like a paper tiger. If this person sees through it, the outcome is still uncertain. Listening to the woman's muttering, Li Yan's heart sank. He asked, "You seem to enjoy watching boxing. Miss, you seem to be quite knowledgeable about traditional martial arts." The woman smiled gently. "In my youth, I studied under the renowned Baguazhang master, Zhang Qinjin. I'm a descendant of the Yin-style Baguazhang." Then Li Yan tentatively asked, "The one who was using Baguazhang in the ring just now, have you ever seen him box? Could you show me?" The woman cupped her face and softly said, "Besides, I never paid attention to his looks. I only remember his style wasn't orthodox Baguazhang. It should be from several independent schools in the north. This person may have a serious illness. Old friend, if you want to buy him, you should be cautious." Li Yan pondered for a moment and asked, "Miss, may I have the honor of knowing your name?" The woman tilted her head, looking at Li Yan with an amiable smile and said, "My surname is Yu, and my name is Yushu. People in the martial arts world affectionately call me Tai Sui." Li Yan's heart was violently shaken. "Are you kidding me? This girl is actually the Tai Sui. Can you believe it? The mastermind behind Kowloon Walled City is actually a sunny girl." Li Yan looked at Yushu beside him with a surprised expression. Yushu looked at Li Yan and smiled softly. "You should probably introduce yourself first." Before Li Yan could speak, a voice, full of charm, echoed in. "How come the mighty Tai Sui of Kowloon Walled City doesn't even recognize his own subordinates?" Judy walked up with a beaming smile. Her curvaceous figure and alluring face drew the attention of all the gamblers around. She sat directly beside Li Yan. He hooked Li Yan's arm. "Don't you even know your boss's boss? Didn't Hong Gui tell you?" Yushu looked at Li Gu, tilting his head. "So you're Hong Gui's I thought you were just a sucker looking for fun. Everyone in Fui building calls me Tai Sui. Call me that from now on too. He then looked at Judy and said, "It's been a long time, Mrs. Deng." Judy's expression stiffened, but she still forced a smile and said, "It's been a long time. You still look so beautiful, Mrs. Deng, but women still need to make themselves look good." Mrs. Deng is right. I remember, Mrs. Deng. If you remember any suitable cosmetics, please recommend them to me. Listening to these few words, Mrs. Deng, Judy said, displeased, "Certainly. I have an appointment with Ian, and I have something to do." Then she pulled Li Yan and left. Judy angrily threw her handbag on the ground. He said angrily, "That woman must have called me that on purpose." Li Yan picked up a glass of wine and handed it to Judy. "Although we haven't known each other for long, this is the first time I've seen you so angry." Taking the glass, she asked Li Yan with a sour expression, "This is the first time I've met your boss. How is he? Pretty, isn't she?" Li Yan said seriously, "She's my big boss, of course she's beautiful, but still not as beautiful as you, Judy." Judy didn't speak, looking at Li Gu. She thought to herself, "That Tai Sui can make Hong Gui follow her wholeheartedly. I can do the same with Li Yan." Then he pulled Li Yan to the window. Kowloon Walled City has attracted many newcomers lately. Every single one of them is fierce. Then he nudged his mouth towards the ring below. A fight had just ended on the ring at that moment. A man lay on the ground. A large amount of fresh blood spurted from the wound on his neck. It was clear he wouldn't survive. His opponent was standing nearby. He was of short stature, wearing a blue demon mask. The weapon in his hand resembled a smoking pipe. The outer side of the pipe had a steel blade. The entire thing was made of cast iron, gleaming with a cold glint. Blood dripped from it. It looked extremely eerie. Li Yan was somewhat shocked. "It's actually the Lanmian So. This is the unique weapon of the Northern Toe Kick Fancy Fist. Although it's roughly similar to a smoking pipe, it is truly a real S-type weapon." Judy is standing next to Li Yan. "The new guy here is called Wu Er. The one backing him up is called He Changhong. He's notoriously arrogant. Ah Yan, do you have a good chance against him?" Li Yan said with a smirk. "If I upset Judy, then I'll be 12 points sure." Judy chuckled, thinking Li Yan was joking. Then she picked up the videotape on the table, wanting Li Yan to see his usual deboxing style. Li Yan directly held her hand, hugging Judy from behind. He said seriously, "I said 12% is 12%. Judy looked at Li Yan. Closing her eyes, she lightly kissed Li Yan on the face. Li Yan was suddenly stunned. Taking this opportunity, Judy escaped from Li Yan's arm. "Jerk. Trying to flirt with me? You're still too green." At this moment, the system's voice suddenly sounded. "The location of the ancient novel, Go Chen Lu, has been reported." Li Yan was startled. He quickly walked to the window. He looked down at the arena. Below, Wu Er had already removed the blue demon mask, revealing a young, tender face. Li Yan smiled. He mouthed the word, "Bow." They both launched a stunning counterattack simultaneously. Both their systems sounded an alert at the same time. "You've discovered a fellow operative. Can you believe it? This seemingly innocent, small boy before me is actually a ruthless killer without a shred of mercy." On the rooftop of the Fui building, Li Yan quietly analyzed the situation before him. The companion he had just discovered is named Zhang Mingyuan. The only information he knows so far is their skill. He knows nothing else. This person walks with a mysterious grace. Companion is a term used for those who walk the Yanfu path. It refers to others who might have conflicting interests, but share the same goal. Dead companions will not receive any rewards. I looked at the progress of my current Yanfu incident. I only need to win 2 more rounds in the 7th arena. As for the ancient novel, Gao Chen Lu, I only have 2 incomplete chapters. There's no clue on how to awaken the fragmented soul of the Guhua bird either, but there's no clear requirement for one person to do it alone. In principle, I can team up with someone called Wu Er to complete it, but the Gufu incident also showed that the more fragments you collect, the most there can be are 5 pages of fragments. So, it's hard to say who should take more or less. At this moment, the door on the rooftop was suddenly pushed open. Zhang Mingyuan walked over slowly. He stood 2 to 3 meters behind Li Yan and remained silent. Li Yan spoke directly, I don't like beating around the bush. We all have our own reasons for being here. We don't need to inquire about each other's origins. Give me the 2 fragments you have. I'll find the remaining soul of the Guhua bird. You take this time to earn more points. Just wait and leave, how about that? Zhang Mingyuan slowly spoke. I don't like to cooperate with others. And I don't trust others either. The boss backing my venue and the woman backing yours aren't exactly on good terms. If we fight in the ring, the loser will have nothing left. The winner gets to take everything. What do you think? Li Yan knows. In the Yanfu incident, if we lose the match, the progress of the incident will be disregarded. It'll be ignored. Directly return. I can no longer interfere in anything that happens in the Yanfu incident. She really is staking everything. She looked at Li Gu without speaking. Zhang Mingyuan was getting anxious. He asked again whether Li Yan would agree or not. Li Yan snorted and said, Kowloon Walled City is a den of iniquity. Son, the game between us can become extremely complex. You've practiced martial arts since childhood, but your experience is too shallow. Instead of maneuvering with an old hand like me, it's better to settle it cleanly in the ring. You're afraid I won't accept your challenge, aren't you? His thoughts were seen through by Li Gu at a glance. Zhang Mingyuan was shocked. A thin bead of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Li Yan walked straight past Zhang Mingyuan. See you in the ring tomorrow. As soon as the words left his mouth, Zhang Mingyuan's heart, which had been hanging in suspense, finally settled back into his stomach. Li Yan, who had already left, also realized that the person who had been holding a torn page and fluctuating between far and near was not Zhang Mingyuan. Just as he returned to Judy's box door, a blond man walked out from inside. He sized up Li Gu up and down. He gave a strange laugh. The King of Hell, huh? I'm curious to see who meets the King of Hell tomorrow. After saying that, he took a seductive woman by the arm and left. Li Yan was stunned for a moment before walking into the room. Judy stood by the window, and the red ghost was leaning on the sofa, silent. When Li Yan walked in, Judy softly asked, Yan, what kind of weapon do you need? I'll have the red ghost help you prepare it. At this point, Li Gu roughly understood what was going on. It seemed like they were going to fight with weapons. Zhang Mingyuan's weapon was the face-blocking old man. There are many unique weapons in Baguazhang. What kind would you like to choose? After thinking for a moment, Li Yan spoke. Hong Gui, prepare a longsword for me. It should be at least 1 meter long. 1 meter 30 would be best. Hong Gui said seriously. Zhang Mingyuan is about to duel with Li Yan. What will the ending be? Follow me. To understand this amazing work. Just how unpromising is this battle? It hasn't even started, and already people want the male lead to forfeit. Hong Gui takes Li Yan to an ice room downstairs. They sit facing each other. He didn't say anything. The atmosphere was a bit heavy. Hong Gui knew that Li Yan's opponent this time was no ordinary person. He nervously asked, I asked you to get a checkup not long ago. Li Yan took the cigarette. Hong Gui, there's no need to be so nagging. I know my own body. Li Yan looked at the red ghost and thought to himself, the red ghost isn't a bad person. Whether or not he's sincere, he does take good care of me. Seeing Li Yan's casual demeanor, the red ghost's heart sank even further. The Taisu said when he watched you fight, that you were weak and restless, possibly suffering from a serious illness. You don't want to tell me about your situation. I don't mind that you've only been in the settlement for a few days. I don't want to help you settle in so soon. If it really doesn't work out, just take a break for a while. I'll handle things with Judy. Li Yan could feel that Hong Gui's concern was genuine, not just empty words. He thought to himself, if I really could live here, maybe it's a good choice after all. He then smiled and said to Red Ghost, your personality is not suitable for being a big shot. Red Ghost smiled self-deprecatingly. Tai Sui said the same. To be honest, if your body can't handle it, then don't fight. Li Yan stared into Red Ghost's eyes and said seriously, will Tai Sui watch me fight tomorrow? The Red Ghost asked, somewhat puzzled. Maybe it depends on how she arranges things. Li Yan took a deep gulp of his drink. He said seriously with a stern expression, you must make sure he sees me finish this match. Walking on the way back to the apartment, Li Yan covered his nose and muttered to himself, why does the fish ball smell in this alley keep getting stronger? It's really unbearable. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. They handed the meal box to Li Gu. Yan's mom heard that you live alone, so she made you some char siu. Thank you for looking out for me. Li Yan didn't refuse. Sometimes he comes home late. A Xiu's mother always brings him something to eat. I noticed your house hasn't had the lights on at night recently. Is the light bulb broken? Would you like me to help fix it? I can see if I can fix it. It would also be a good chance for me to visit Auntie. A Xiu suddenly lowered her head. Her expression was somewhat grim. She directly rejected Li Gu. Then she left. Although Li Yan was somewhat puzzled by a Xiu's attitude, he didn't think much of it. When a Xiu returned home, she opened the door. A strong, foul odor wafted from the room. A Xiu walked into the room with a vacant look in her eyes. Fui Building Underground Arena. The stands were already packed with people. Li Yan held a Chinese sword. It was 1.3 meters long with a 3-finger-wide blade, shining brilliantly. Engraved on the blade were the words, "Qi gives birth to all landscapes, forming a coiled dragon." 8 big characters. Li Yan took up a sword stance. The sword indeed proved to be good. On the stands, Judy looked worried. She asked Red Ghost with some concern, "Where did you get that sword? Is it reliable?" Red Ghost calmly replied, "Don't worry, Sister Judy. This is the private collection of the Tai Sui. I've handled bloodied weapons before, no problem." Yu Shu was sitting among the crowd in the stands. He silently thought to himself, the Han sword is the most brutal, exhausting the most energy. Given his physical condition, he can't possibly sustain it. But that guy doesn't seem like the type to court death out of delusion. Could it be that I misjudged him? At this moment, Zhang Mingyuan also arrived on the stage. He tore off his cloak, holding a 90-centimeter long staff. The smoking pipe had a blade width of about 4 fingers. Both ends wrapped in wrought iron, the mouthpiece shaped like a bird's beak. He recalled the startling warning from before. Li Yan's ancient martial arts proficiency was shockingly 81%. It was a full 12 percentage points higher than his own. The two sides exchanged polite gestures and introduced themselves. Zizaman, Zhang Mingyuan. Hejian, Li Gu. Zhang Mingyuan holds the cigarette holder with one hand. The right leg draws a circle on the ground. Use one leg to push forward instantly. Cold light flashes in the eyes. The old man who blocked the face slashed Li Yan's face. The battle has officially begun. Who is stronger, who is weaker? Stay tuned for more exciting action in the next episode. The battle between Hejian's Slender Tiger and the little Zheng Tai from Zizaman has finally begun. Yet Hejian's Slender Tiger, who had the upper hand, was unexpectedly crippled in his right arm with a single blow. Zhang Mingyuan held his pipe in one hand, leaped forward, and went straight for Li Yan's face. Li Yan swung his left hand, fingers bent into a hook. The back of his hand struck directly at the point where Zhang Mingyuan was gripping his cigarette holder. The tremendous force made Zhang Mingyuan loosen his grip. The attack was deflected. Li Yan seized the opportunity. His right hand gripped the Han sword, thrusting it upward to slash directly at Zhang Mingyuan's left arm. The blade gleamed with a cold light. If this strike succeeded, Zhang Mingyuan would at best lose his left arm. A heavy blow would separate the head from the body. Seeing the imminent danger, Zhang Mingyuan swiftly twisted his wrist. He tightly gripped the old man's block and turned, charging directly at Li Yan's solar plexus. Li Yan hurriedly sidestepped to avoid it, but his face was still left with a wound. Indeed, one should never underestimate any opponent. His fingers came together, forming a beak-like shape. He aimed directly at Zhang Mingyuan's wrist acupoint. Zhang Mingyuan cried out in pain as the Lan Mian So was knocked from his hand. Li Yan seized the opportunity, wielding his Han sword and lunging towards Zhang Mingyuan's face. Zhang Mingyuan, relying on his incredible waist strength, performed an iron bridge. He quickly leaped backward, creating distance between himself and Li Yan. The Li family of Hejian are masters of both spear and sword. The 24 hidden moon stances of the Doujian Mu Jia. Li Yan gripped his Han sword in his right hand. He grabbed the Lan Mian So with his left hand. He finally let out a sigh of relief. Although Zhang Mingyuan had just dodged Li Yan's fatal strike, his left arm was still cut by the Han sword, leaving a long wound. Blood kept dripping onto the ground. In just one round, in the blink of an eye, Zhang Mingyuan was injured on his left arm and disarmed. In the VIP box upstairs, He Chang Hong's face darkened as he saw Zhang Mingyuan lose. In his eyes, Zhang Mingyuan's life was insignificant. Losing face in front of Judy was what he couldn't tolerate. Judy, on the other hand, wore a smile. Her previous worries were gone. On the boxing ring, Li Yan threw his Lan Mian So. He tossed it off the stage, ducked, and charged forward. The Ba Mian Han sword in his hand. He slashed at Zhang Mingyuan's legs with a fierce blow. Zhang Mingyuan leaped. He dodged Li Yan's attack. In mid-air, he used his left foot to stomp on Li Yan's sword-holding hand. Then, he side-kicked Li Yan's face. Li Yan braced himself with his right hand, twisting his waist. His broadsword described a circular arc, directly aiming upwards. Seeing the perilous situation, Zhang Mingyuan, if I hadn't dodged, I would have been split in two. I had no choice but to twist in mid-air. I landed on my feet, but before Zhang Mingyuan could catch his breath, the domineering Han sword came down upon him. Zhang Mingyuan couldn't dodge in time. His right shoulder was slashed, leaving a long wound. But just as Zhang Mingyuan was struck, instead of retreating, he charged towards Li Yan, taking advantage of the falling sword. Li Yan, seeing this, hurriedly exerted himself again. The falling Han sword, like an angry dragon raising its head, attacked Zhang Mingyuan again. Zhang Mingyuan leaped up, his feet landing directly on the blade. The immense force caused the Han sword to fall again, crashing heavily onto the fighting platform. At this moment, in Zhang Mingyuan's eyes, an ancient beast emerges. The outcome is determined in this moment. Zhang Mingyuan rises with the momentum. His heel steps on Li Yan's sword. He spins in mid-air and kicks. The northern thrust kick is quick and crisp, followed by a sweeping whip. A hidden flower kick beneath the leaf, a point leg. Li Yan is struck in the chin by the leg. The body leans back. Blood starts to drip from the corner of the mouth. A system prompt sounds. You have faced the power of the enlightened beast. You have obtained some information. Would you like to spend a few Yenfu points to view it? Yes. The Divine Phoenix, Legacy of the Enlightened Beast, XXXXXX feature, Furious Spirit. A sudden warning. The Legacy of the Enlightened Beast. Its characteristic is the spirit of rage. At this moment, Zhang Mingyuan's state has transformed into an enraged spirit. Quality, a sudden warning. The Legacy of the Enlightened Beast. In terms of skills, it has gained the Legacy of the Enlightened Beast, an enraged spirit. Every move will carry the power of the Enlightened Beast. Each attack will burn the opponent's soul. It can be attached to any weapon. The effect in ranged combat is only 30% of that in close combat. Under intense pain, Li Yan's grip loosened. The sword fell to the ground. Zhang Mingyuan's toes barely touched the ground. His ankle exerted force and spun. The kick landed solidly on Li Yan's shoulder. A sharp pain suddenly shot through his right arm. Li Yan knew his right arm was likely ruined. He was also sent flying several meters by the tremendous force. He crashed heavily into the edge of the ring. The situation instantly reversed. Li Yan and Zhang Mingyuan's battle has entered a self-heating phase. Zhang Mingyuan has activated the power of the Bright Beast's inheritance. Can Li Yan achieve victory? Li Yan's right arm was crippled by a kick from Zhang Mingyuan. Zhang Mingyuan's right foot is surrounded by the power of the Bright Beast. A faint red glow emanates from it. He then kicked up the Han sword. With one hand, he grabbed it and thrust it straight at Li Yan. Li Yan stared at Zhang Mingyuan with an utterly indifferent gaze. He lightly shouted, even the power of the Kai Ming beast, however tyrannical, it has to hit its target. Facing Zhang Mingyuan's attack, Li Yan twisted his feet to the right, his body swaying like a ghost, following the trajectory of Zhang Mingyuan's attack. In an instant, he was before Zhang Mingyuan. He stepped forward with his right foot, turned, and raised his left hand. Bagua Zhang's 64 secret techniques. The fist slammed heavily toward Zhang Mingyuan's chest and eyes. Zhang Mingyuan thought to himself that it was bad. He immediately realized that the Han sword was not his strength. Using the force from Li Yan, he tried to leverage his footwork, to push Li Go back. But just as his calf was about to lift, it was unexpectedly stepped on by Li Yan's right foot. Above the shin bone of the calf, was unexpectedly the ultimate technique from the footwork gate, the silk wrapping leg. At the same time, Li Yan's palm rose. Seizing this opening, he delivered a powerful punch. right to Zhang Mingyuan's chest. With a loud crash, Zhang Mingyuan spit out a mouthful of blood. Then, Li Yan transformed his fist into a claw. He grabbed Zhang Mingyuan's shoulder and pinned him to the ground. With his left hand, he swiftly seized the Han sword from his hand. The razor-sharp blade pressed towards Zhang Mingyuan's throat. Seeing that the match had ended, the stands erupted with deafening cheers. Although the fight was short, its danger and intensity far exceeded other events. Li Yan suddenly pulled the Han sword from Zhang Mingyuan's neck. A pair of cold eyes stared at Zhang Mingyuan and asked, "What is your relationship with Zhang Daojing?" Zhang Mingyuan's expression was now somewhat dazed. He involuntarily replied, "She's my sister." Li Yan remained silent for a while. Grabbing Zhang Mingyuan's collar, he said fiercely, "You broke my right hand. It won't heal within a month, and the consequences will be endless. I really should have said you to vent my anger." Then he directly threw Zhang Mingyuan off the broadcast platform. Zhang Mingyuan fell heavily to the ground. He got up and asked unwillingly, "How could you know my Qiu Jiaomen's entangled silk leg?" Li Yan heard Zhang Mingyuan's question. He answered through gritted teeth, "Go home and ask your sister." In the private room, Hong Gui let out a heavy sigh. His anxious heart finally eased. Meanwhile, Judy was flushed, her body drenched in fragrant sweat as she said to Hong Gui, "You go outside for a moment. Close the door behind you when you leave." In the bathroom, Li Yan endured intense pain. Reconnect the arm that has already been detached. Look at yourself in the mirror. Li Yan thought to himself, "Just one more win, and I'll complete the first task." "When you dropped your sword, I honestly thought you might lose." Xiao Zhou's voice suddenly came from behind Li Yan. Li Yan softly said, "You're not that free, are you? Who am I fighting next?" "I came here specifically to watch my match. A little punk who practices Wing Chun." Li Yan licked his lips. He turned to Xiao Zhou and softly said, "Be careful, don't capsize in a small gutter." Li Yan had a defiant personality. He had very few peers in the martial arts world he respected, but for someone with a temperament like Xiao Zhou's, cold on the outside, warm on the inside, Li Yan truly admires him. In this era where traditional martial arts are in decline, a skilled practitioner like Xiao Zhou is truly a rare gem. At this moment, one of the younger disciples outside the door informs Xiao Zhou that the match is about to begin. Xiao Zhou slowly walks toward the door, then suddenly turns around and says to Li Yan, "Gongsun Yan, Zhang Yi is certainly no great man." After saying that, he left without the slightest hesitation. Li Yan opened his mouth and said softly, "Can't you speak properly? What's with the pretentious intellectual act? Do you really think I'm dating a rich woman, when in reality, you're the one living off others, and now you're trying to lecture me?" Xiao Zhou is warming up under the ring. Behind him, Hua Shanjiu is still talking to a man in sunglasses. Introducing Xiao Zhou, the manager is still advising Xiao Zhou. This kid is no ordinary opponent. He strikes very ruthlessly. In the 10 matches, his opponents are either S-ranked or severely injured. Don't show any mercy. Xiao Zhou smiled gently and said, "I've never held back. It's just that there's no need to go to extremes." On the arena, Xiao Zhou wasn't wearing brass knuckles. Instead, he was holding a 9-ringed broadsword. The young man standing opposite him had a delicate face, and looked about 18 or 19 years old. It was hard to imagine he was someone ruthless and brutal. The boy looked at Xiao Zhou. Whether he steps onto the boxing ring or not is irrelevant. Xiao Zhou pursed his lips and let out a cold snort. He didn't respond, but clasped his hands in a bow. Zhou Weidao, of the Du family boxing style. The boy returned the bow, imitating the gesture perfectly. Wing Chun, Su Tianxi. The battle between Xiao Zhou and Su Tianxi finally began. Su Tianxi also revealed his weapon, the 8/saber. The 8/saber is a set of knife techniques from Wing Chun. It is both a style of knife techniques and the name of the saber itself, with a shorter blade and a slightly narrower surface. The blade is sharp, and its thrusting techniques are fierce and deadly, with each strike aiming for the kill. After the first exchange of moves, Xiao Zhou's eyes slightly narrowed, realizing this opponent was no ordinary fighter. He no longer underestimated him. The 9-ring broadsword is wide and sweeping. Every move is filled with dominance. Su Tianxi's 8/blade focuses on speed. Both sides are fighting fast with speed. In the blink of an eye, the two exchange several blows. Su Tianxi's blade is light and agile, his speed slightly superior. Taking advantage of Xiao Zhou's breath pause, he slashes directly at Xiao Zhou's eyes. The twin blades come down heavily, but Xiao Zhou dodges by sidestepping. Su Tianxi's footwork shifts instantly. A downward strike changes into an upward thrust with twin blades. Xiao Zhou blocks with a broadsword. Both sides are sparing no mercy in their exchange. It's a battle of speed against speed, with a series of clashing sounds. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Zhou has struck 21 blows. Xiao Zhou's strikes are ferocious. At this moment, Su Tianxi can only defend passively. He blocks the single sword with the twin blades. He spins around and jumps back to defend his entire body. Xiao Zhou raises both swords high. Each strike is fiercer than the last, relentlessly pursuing. Su Tianxi hastily retreats. He executes the plum blossom footwork to its fullest. Xiao Zhou's strikes come faster and faster. The Taiji plum blossom praying mantis steps combined with the nine-ring broadsword. Su Tianxi was trembling in fear, continuously retreating. Suddenly, Su Tianxi's blade lunged straight toward Xiao Zhou's face. Xiao Zhou couldn't dodge in time, leaving a wound on his face. At the same time, Su Tianxi was struck in the chest by Xiao Zhou's blade. Seeing Su Tianxi had backed into the edge of the ring with no way out, Xiao Zhou charged forward. He quickly rushed in, determined to strike. With one hand gripping his knife, he swung it fiercely at Su Tianxi. Su Tianxi's eyes narrowed. He drew the cleaver close to his chest. Then he swung it out with extreme speed. The blade flashed, blood spurted. Xiao Zhou's wrist, holding the large knife, was severed. Su Tianxi ducked and charged forward. His two blades crossed like butterflies. He swung both blades, fiercely hacking into Xiao Zhou's abdomen. A large amount of blood gushed from Xiao Zhou. Xiao Zhou watched all this in disbelief. Su Tianxi smiled slightly. He knew he had won. Meanwhile, Li Yan slowly walked into the infirmary. He looked at Zhang Mingyuan lying on the bed. He watched the nurse place her hand on Zhang Mingyuan's leg. Li Yan smiled meaningfully. "Excuse me, nurse, could you please step aside? I have something to say to him." The nurse quickly pulled her right hand back. She glanced at Zhang Mingyuan and turned to leave. Li Yan didn't waste any words. He stretched out his hand, directly asking for the remains. This was one of the main reasons he came here. Zhang Mingyuan looked at him with slight anger. He said irritably, "In my arms, my left hand suffered a fracture of the cartilage. My right hand was slashed by you, leaving a 40-centimeter long gash." Li Yan bitterly sat down next to Zhang Mingyuan. He reached into Zhang Mingyuan's arms and pulled out 2 torn pages. Then he asked directly, "Is this your first time participating in the Yanfu incident?" "It's my second time." Zhang Mingyuan replied somewhat dejectedly. "Was it a fat person who brought you in?" Zhang Mingyuan paused for a moment and replied, "No. The person who brought me in was a beautiful woman I will never forget." Li Yan thought for a moment. It seems there must have been more than one guide. Then Li Yan asked the question he most wanted to know. "What will I get as a reward after completing the Yanfu incident? What reward will I receive?" This man is incredibly arrogant. He came here to cause trouble with hundreds of people. Just now, Li Yan asked Zhang Mingyuan about the reward he received for completing the Yanfu incident for the first time. A look of fanaticism flashed in Zhang Mingyuan's eyes as he said, "The first time you complete the Yanfu event, you will definitely obtain a Yanfu inheritance. It is a transcendent and extraordinary power." Li Yan silently lit a cigarette. He spoke mercilessly. "Why do so many people care about this? If it were truly useful, the one lying here should be me." Zhang Mingyuan glanced at Li Yan. He grumpily explained the rules of Yanfu. Apparently, after the Yanfu incident, all actions would be settled. The higher the evaluation, the more Yanfu points you get, and the higher your purchasing power. The most efficient way to increase purchasing power is to S people. Li Yan took a deep drag of his cigarette. Zhang Mingyuan glanced at Li Yan and continued, "It should dissipate in about 1 or 2 hours. My enlightened beast power will fade. Your right arm will be fine." Upon hearing this, Li Yan visibly relaxed a bit. "There are still a few tough battles ahead. It would be troublesome if my right arm is useless. This is the best news I've heard today." Li Yan stood up. He stared fixedly at Zhang Mingyuan and asked, "You've been playing cat and mouse with me these past few days?" Zhang Mingyuan looked at Li Yan with suspicion. "I don't know what you're talking about. That person is definitely not me. And, what exactly is your relationship with my sister?" After speaking, he left the hospital room without looking back. On the way back, Li Yan was silently praising Zhang Mingyuan's physical condition. He had taken 3 of his swords, 1 claw, and 1 punch. At this moment, the phone suddenly rang. Li Yan glanced at the number. It was a call from Hong Gui. The line on the other end was full of noise. A pleasant female voice came. "Ian, right? Come to the boxing ring and take a young man out through the back door. If anyone stops you on the way, beat them to death." Li Yan was startled. It was actually a call from Tai Sui. His mind raced, and he hurried towards the boxing ring upstairs. The underground boxing ring at this moment. Hua Shanjiu revealed a body of strong muscles. The demon tattoo on his chest flared with anger. Hundreds of gang members surrounded the ring, leaving no way out. Hua Shanjiu stared at Tai Luo with a grim expression. "Old Z, if we don't kill him today, nobody here is leaving. You Hua Shanjiu think you're something special. What do you want? If you're looking for trouble, you'd better know your own limits." Li Yan arrived at that moment. He whispered to Hong Gui, asking what had happened. "What's all the commotion about?" Hong Gui said darkly. "Xiao Zhou lost his right hand, it was chopped off. He was stabbed twice in the stomach. His intestines were spilled all over the ground. He's been sent to the hospital by someone from Hua Shanjiu." The Wahop Singh people started causing trouble to demand an explanation. Li Yan glanced at Flower Shirt 9. He clearly didn't want to see this outcome, but he didn't say much. Once you're in the ring, no one can guarantee a win. "The young man Tai Sui asked me to take away." Hong Gui waved his hand. He took Li Yan to the backstage. He looked at the person inside and said, "Get this kid out of Kowloon walled city safely. Even if he dies, he cannot die under our noses." His body was covered in wounds, large and small. The most severe was in his abdomen. When Li Yan entered, the young man's eyes lit up. He excitedly asked, "You are the king of hell. This man is really too powerful." Just a single glance, and a group of desperate criminals fled in fear. After seeing the young man who defeated Xiao Zhou, "Can you walk on your own?" Of course, with a positive answer from Li Yan, he directly walked out through the back door. At this moment, the young man following behind him kept chattering on. "Once you beat him, there won't be any opponents left in the ring, right? I've been training in martial arts for over 10 years, but I haven't felt this satisfied in the past few days. That little Zhou is impressive. The 9 rings broadsword made my arm go weak. It's a pity, though, I was still a little faster." Li Yan suddenly stopped. Although the time was short, Li Yan had already considered Xiao Zhou to be something like a half-friend in his heart. And this Su Tianxi, who severely injured Xiao Zhou, was actually still here boasting. "You say you practice traditional martial arts. Do you believe in martial ethics?" He shook his head and laughed. "That stuff's outdated." Li Yan burst into laughter. He abruptly turned, raised his leg, and delivered a side kick. His foot was like a tiger descending a mountain. He viciously kicked Su Tianxi in the still bleeding abdomen. Su Tianxi was kicked a meter away. He crashed into the wall behind him. He said in a cold tone, "I think so too." Then he turned around and kept walking forward. He didn't want to be turned into minced meat by the people from Liansheng, so he quickly got up and ran away. Su Tianxi wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "I'll definitely pay you back for this kick." Just then, his phone suddenly rang. He answered, and a resentful voice came through. "You bastard, where the hell have you been?" Li Yan talked on the phone with Judy, while taking Su Tianxi to escape. 2 Wahing members were squatting near the stairs, sizing up Li Yan and Su Tianxi. As Su Tianxi walked past, the 2 suddenly stood up, trying to grab Su Tianxi's shoulders. A dark shadow flashed past. A fierce knee strike hit him hard. He instinctively reached for the machete at his waist. Suddenly, everything went blurry. Li Yan delivered a powerful side kick to his face. Both men instantly lost consciousness. He just picked up the machete that had fallen to the ground. Li Yan, still on the phone, saw a group of Wahop members. He rushed down the stairs, weapon in hand. He threw the phone directly to Su Tianxi. He launched himself into a dive. His right foot connected directly with a thug's face. Immediately after, he did a backflip. Using his core strength, he struck the thug in the chest. Then, using the recoil, he took down the last thug. In a flash, Su Tianxi stood aside. The phone in his hand was still ringing. Yen, what are you up to? Why is it so noisy around you? Are you even listening to me? Before Su Tianxi could speak, he snatched the phone away. She whispered softly, Sister Judy, I'll be fine here soon. I'll call you later. After speaking, she hung up the phone. She turned to Su Tianxi and said, hurry up. At this moment, the back door of the service building had already been locked with iron chains. A group of people from Liansheng were guarding here. Seeing Li Yan's appearance, the leading thug muttered, he's here. A dozen or so people all stood up quietly, each one holding a shiny weapon. Li Gu and the other person walked over slowly. The leading thug, his eyes flashing with cold light, asked, little brother, didn't I tell you to find the Vietnamese guy to get a shotgun? Brother who said it would take time to get the cue from the Vietnamese. We haven't got it yet. He watched the two approaching slowly. Tiger brother was also a little hesitant. Although the other guy is a trained fighter, he should be seriously injured after being stabbed in the stomach by Xiao Zhou. There are more than 10 of us, and we even specifically brought a hunting snare. There's no reason we can't handle this kid. At this moment, Li Yan's face was calm. He exuded an aura of coldness and menace. His eyes glowed with a red light. It was as if the Grim Reaper had arrived. Brother Tiger looked at Li Yan, sweat beading on his forehead. You didn't get the cue, right? In the end, Brother Tiger gave Li Yan a sharp, intense look. He spat out the word retreat through gritted teeth. This little brat is actually so arrogant. His injuries haven't even healed. And he's already challenging Li Yan to a duel. Li Yan safely escorted Su Tianxi out of Longqing's city walls. Now that Su Tianxi is out of danger, he starts complaining. He signed a death contract before going on stage. Once you're in the ring, there's no turning back. If you lose, you don't make excuses. It's really meaningless. Li Yan gave him a warning glance. In this world, there's never any real logic. What matters here are relationships and human affairs. Su Tianxi looked at Li Yan as if he hadn't heard a word he said. He shouted angrily, 15 days. I will definitely recover in 15 days. Li Yan did not respond to Su Tianxi's words. Instead, he turned and silently left. Huashan Jiotai. He watched as people from Liansheng's group continued to pour into the town. It seems tonight won't be too peaceful. Li Yan, carrying a bunch of shopping bags, arrived at the Fui building. Red Ghost teased as he looked at Li Yan. Did you just come back from a date with Judy? From Red Ghost, Li Yan learned that the matter with Liansheng had been settled. In the past 3 days, various big shots gathered in the city fortress. Finally, under pressure from all sides, Liansheng's people chose to let things go. In the training room, Yushu was dressed in training clothes. She displays her alluring figure to the fullest. The aura of a sunny girl comes at you. On her young face, there's a sense of determination and seriousness. It's hard to believe that such a pure girl is actually involved in the underworld. Tai Sui, you're looking for me. Yushu got up, looked at Li Yan, and smiled. That kid is just here for fun. No matter the outcome between you two, the future champion of the 6th broadcast will be you. Of course, I should look after the future pillar of the station. Li Yan cupped his hands in salute. You're joking, Tai Sui. I'm not qualified to be the champion. I'll just earn some money and go back to the countryside to retire. You raised an eyebrow. It was as if she had seen through Li Yan's thoughts. You don't want to work with me. Li Yan fell silent for a moment, then suddenly laughed. How could that be? After leaving the Fui building, Hong Gui gave Li Yan a meaningful glance and smiled. There are really too few people like Li Yan, who are so sentimental. Hong Kong St. Mary's Hospital. Li Yan was holding a fruit basket in his hand. Just as he reached the door of the hospital room, he heard Hua Shanzhou's voice. I see you were seriously injured by that kid. You were just angry and caused a scene at Fui. You hadn't planned for it to go that far. Hua Shanzhou suddenly saw Li Gu walking in from the door. There is some displeasure in his eyes. You really have the guts to come. If there's a grievance, there's a cause. Xiao Zhou was hurt by Su Tianxi. This debt can't possibly be counted on me, unless you don't mind. Let's two martial artists have a private chat. From when Li Yan came in, Xiao Zhou's gaze remained fixed on him. He nodded to Hua Shanjiu upon hearing this. Hua Shanjiu glared at Li Yan. He walked out with a cold face. Li Yan picked up the fruit knife on the table. He skillfully peeled the apple. How are your injuries? Did you suffer any lasting problems? The arm has been reattached. It might hurt when it rains in the future. Rest in bed for half a year, and it'll be fine. Li Yan listened quietly. Xiao Zhou spoke casually. The arm was broken once. His martial arts were nearly ruined. Xiao Zhou smiled weakly. You came here just to say this to me. Li Yan looked at Xiao Zhou seriously. Yes, I came here just to say this. After speaking, he placed the fruit plate he had prepared in front of Xiao Zhou. Xiao Zhou slightly shook his head. Take care of yourself. The two of them remained silent. In the end, Li Yan and Xiao Zhou didn't have a deep friendship. They merely admired each other. After a while, Li Yan stood up, bid farewell to Xiao Zhou, and prepared to leave. As he reached the door, Xiao Zhou suddenly called out to Li Yan from behind. Master Li, thank you. The weariness on Li Yan's face dissipated. A fleeting encounter, all are guests from distant lands. Mountains and rivers are hard to cross. Who grieves for the lost traveler? Xiao Zhou has left the stage, but I'm still here. A martial artist's 3 points of resentment. How long can they be kept? It's time to let go. Such a delicate beauty is throwing herself at you.